What's the greatest thing that's ever happened to you? When I think back over my life, I've had so many great things happen. I remember one time being at a conference, and at our house we had our Mac desktop had just crashed, and I think the motherboard like exploded on the inside, and we were like, oh no, what are we going to do for a computer? And finances were tight. So when I went to this conference, I was sitting there, and it was during a break time, and they had sort of this inside blimp going around, and it was dropping different items out of it onto people below. And I remember sitting there, and it got above me, and it dropped this card down, and it landed right in my lap. And when I picked that card up, what I discovered was I had won a new iMac. And so I was so excited because God had delivered this incredible gift to me. And so over the years, I've had things like that happen. Obviously not all the time, but I've had incredible things happen to me. And when I think back to the things that have happened to me that have been the best, I can't help but think of the fact that God sent me a gorgeous wife, Trish, that He gave us 3 incredible sons, and that He even called me to the pastorate. So thankful for these things that have happened. But one thing that is greater than all the other things in my life is that God has saved me, that Jesus Christ died for me and has revealed Himself to me through the Scriptures and through the gospel, and that He has saved me. And that has given me great hope. And today, I want to encourage you with that same hope. First Peter, when Peter writes, he writes to give people who are suffering hope. And what he starts off with is helping them to understand what it means for them to have salvation. And so we want to take some time to look at that today. So I want to read to you just 3 verses today and try to encourage you in your salvation and help you to understand not only that you can be saved through Jesus Christ, but what that means for you going forward. And here's what Peter writes to those early believers who were suffering and have been scattered all throughout the region. He says these words, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to His great mercy, He has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading. It's kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time." So we get these words that talk about salvation, and his words are written to it. And I don't know if you caught it, but Peter, as he's writing, he praises God and blesses God because who shouldn't worship God for the salvation that He's given us? And we look at His salvation to us, that He's given us this incredible mercy, that He has withheld the punishment from us that we deserved, and He actually put that on Jesus Christ. But He says, and I wanted to spend a few moments on it, He has caused us to be born again, that He has so worked in our life that something has happened to us. And I don't know if you caught the first question I asked, but I asked, what are the great things that have happened to you? And salvation happens to you. You don't cause it to happen to yourself, but actually it is God who is the first cause of your salvation. In many ways, God has worked throughout history knowing that you would sin and that He sent His Son to take care of that problem. Reminds me of Paul's writing in Romans 5:8. It says, while we were still sinners, not before we decided to change, but while we were still sinners, that Jesus Christ, because of God, demonstrated His love for us. And so He is caused us to come to salvation. And Peter spent some time helping us to understand that. And so what I wanted to do is point out 3 important facts for us concerning our salvation, in particular that will help you in times of suffering. Number 1 is salvation gives us hope during suffering. I know when I'm going through difficulty, I love to have hope. Hope is when you look into the future and you see that there is good, even though the moment may be bad. It makes me think about times that I've had surgery. For example, you may not know this, but We joke about this a lot here at Grace Point. I have had 7 right knee surgeries. I injured my knee playing football, and over the years, I've just had incredible pain and suffering through that knee. And through all of those surgeries, I've been thankful to have those surgeries because they actually helped me to get to the point where I am now. I'm probably awaiting another surgery in the future. But here's the thing about surgery. Whenever you go to have a surgery, you know that there's going to be suffering involved. You know there's going to be pain involved. Now let's thank God for the grace of being put to sleep and being able to have the doctor wake you back up. But when you go into surgery, you know that when you wake up, you're going to be in quite a bit of pain. The reason you're willing to go through the suffering is because there's hope on the other side. You see that there's good. And so we trust the doctors to do the work so that after we wake up and we go through the pain, we know that there will actually be gain in our life. And so in the same way, salvation works as hope for us. The hope that even though we go through this incredible suffering, that the suffering that we're going through is only temporary, that there's a greater experience awaiting us, that there is good. And so what salvation teaches us is that God gives us hope in the midst of suffering. The other thing is salvation is rooted in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Paul refers to this living hope that we have through the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. The reason he calls it a living hope is because Jesus is alive. And because Jesus is alive, it's a living hope. It's a hope that's not dying. It's a hope that's not fading. And it helps us to get through the next challenges that we face in life. And so we have this great hope, this living hope through Jesus Christ. And I don't know if you've thought much about how the resurrection in the past impacts not only your present but also your future. The resurrection gives us great hope because if Jesus is raised from the dead, how much hope is there for us? Going back to my surgery illustration, I was thinking about this. Imagine if you were the first person that was ever put to sleep before surgery. How scary that would be, that you would be the first person to go through that experience. I would want to be the first person to be the guinea pig, so to speak. But you know what? Jesus is the first person to go through death and to be resurrected. And he is that person. Because he is resurrected, it gives us hope that even in death, the greatest suffering, that we will be resurrected just like he is. And so we have this incredible hope, this living hope in Jesus Christ. The other thing that Peter points out to us that God gives us in our salvation an inheritance. Now, you know what an inheritance is. It's when someone who dies passes on something to someone who is living. Jesus Christ died and he passed on to us an inheritance. And Peter writes about this and he says, we get an inheritance that is imperishable, it's undefiled and unfading, which means it's never going to perish, it's never going to be corrupted, and it's never going to fade. And physical inheritances, look, they can be defiled, they can perish, they can go away. But when it comes to your spiritual inheritance, here's the good news of the gospel. Your inheritance is secure. It's not going to ever go away because Jesus has secured it not only through his death on the cross, but the resurrection that when he came back from that tomb. So as you and I think about this, we see that Peter writes that it's kept in heaven for us. And then it goes on to say, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for salvation that's later going to be revealed. So what Peter is saying to us is our inheritance is secure, but not only is our inheritance secure, that we are secure, that God is working to secure us, and that our salvation is not secure because of all the good things we do, but is secure because he is strong, he is powerful. See, God has the biggest biceps of anyone, meaning that he's strong enough to accomplish all that he sets out to accomplish. In other words, God keeps your inheritance, and not only your inheritance, he keeps your salvation secure by his strength, not by ours. And so you don't have to worry about, do I have to hold on to my place with God? Do I have to hold on to my inheritance? What we discover is that He guards it. This is literally a military term that means that He keeps it safe for us, that it's no one can come and take it away from it, and we can't lose it. And the good news about that is that God's power holds our inheritance, and He holds us safely. I was thinking, it's almost if God is like a bulletproof car, and you get into the car, and no matter what bullets are shot at that car, they cannot penetrate that car because you are safely kept inside the car and behind the power of those glass windows that are bulletproof. You know what? God's bicep is like that. He uses His bicep to keep us safe. He keeps our inheritance safe. So we have this incredible hope and salvation because it's not based on what we do, but it's based on what He does. It reminds me of one of my favorite verses, Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, where Paul writes to these Philippians who are also going through times of difficulty, trying to encourage them toward joy. And he says this, I am confident of this very thing, that He, God, who began this good work in me, will perfect it, will bring it to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. So we find such great hope in those words that Paul wrote to the Philippians, these words that Peter writes to us, that our salvation gives us hope in very difficult times, that His inheritance, that your inheritance is secure, that my inheritance is secure. Not only my inheritance, what I'm going to get, actually I am secure in my salvation because of what Jesus has done. And so let me encourage you today to think about your salvation. Think about all that Christ has done for you and that He has given you a living hope. No matter what you're facing today, whether it's a relational issue, whether it's persecution, whether it's some sort of health issue, if you will look forward, you will see in Jesus Christ a living hope to help you in the midst of suffering.